Never hear them. What do you think about people like the more technical people like Stanley Clark and Marking from Low 42?
But they're all very good. I mean, there's so much. They're so good now. You can't pick one from the. You know, the standard's so high. You know, I mean, who can you say? I mean, I personally, I like McCartney's bass playing. Paul McCartney. Do you? Yeah, he's good, isn't he? But you're talking about something a bit more advanced than.
So you like sort of just like something basic then, basic bass player?
I like a bass player to play the bass instead of pretending he's a lead guitar player, you know, on the. You agree with it?
Yeah.
So I you know, I've got no favourites really. What about our wages then? Do you want to? Do you know? Do you know about our? Do you want to know about our wages?
Well, each night, wasn't it? It was about.
When I was there all day. I mean,
yeah.
I sold Coca-Cola all day in the coffee bar.
Right.
And apple strudels and rum barbers. And I could eat as many as I liked. You try eating rum barbers all day.
And down the bottom in the basement, where the basement was, there was a Coke machine, wasn't there?
That's right.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
There was a red sort of Coke machine with every, you know, and a lovely ice cold Coke you could just, you know, get, and it was great, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was only a small place, really, downstairs, wasn't it?
Downstairs was about 4 foot on top of this. Is that
yeah,
right?
That's about right, yeah.
Anyway, wages. Can I take this off of here?
Sure.
Thank you. So they're selling Coke all day, and rum barbers, of course. Then going down all evening, and we got 18 shillings. How's that? Me and Adam Faith, he was down there, wasn't he?
That's right.
Terry Nellums. I'll never forget, we were sitting in the gutter one day, me and Adam, and both skint. So I said, Terry, I said, what are we going to do? He said, I don't know. He said, I'm starving. Anyway, someone came along and gave us £0.50 each. And £0.50 in those days, probably there's people that don't. Do you know what £0.50 is?
Oh.
That's 12.5p, isn't it? Is that right? And that bought you a mountain of spaghetti bolognese, and he'd probably deny it now, Adam, but we got this £0.50 each off of this person, and we went and we hadn't eaten for about a week and ate this mound, and that lasted us about another week, you see. Carry on, Brian.
Well, as we're on the matter of wages, we, like you, we starved a bit, didn't we, in them days?
Starved.
Didn't we just?
Yeah.
And we often had to walk. I had digs in Kensington, and we walked. There was 3 of us living in a room at that time, and we were really living on bread and water. How about that in those days? Yeah. And although we was playing down the 2i's, but it saved our life really with the pound that we had. We used to go down Denman Street afterwards and have egg and chips.
That's it.
Okay. And but that's how he was in those days. I just happen to recall, if I may just name drop, there was Johnny Kidd. Remember him? Johnny Kidd. Because he died, but I was in such a, you know, I was very, very hungry. And it was Johnny Kidd that bought me a meal. And that was very nice of him. He says, "Come on, Mick, you know, we'll take you into the cafe just in St Anne's Court there."
That's right.
And and I did it to him likewise. And we were, you know, we developed a sort of a friendship. Of course, then the tragic news happened. He died, didn't he? But that's how it was. Down the 2i's, just look at 1 or 2 of the names that were down there at the time, because the flower was really blooming in those days, wasn't
That's
it?
right, yeah.
There was guys like, have you heard of Tony Sheridan?
Yeah.
Right, well, he was down there. There was Brian Bennett. He was down there. Myself, Jet, you kept coming in now and then. And then there was Brian Bennett, myself, and Tony Sheridan, and we became, at that time, the Tony Sheridan Trio. And there was another American rock and roller who came down there, and his name was
Vince
Taylor.
Do you remember Vince Taylor?
Have you heard of Vince Taylor and the Playboys? Ever heard of that? He made quite a good. We were real rockers in them days, and we did all the tracks that we did first take, and they were like brand new Cadillac, and all those numbers. I don't know whether you've heard of those, but they were blossoming at the time, wasn't
That's
it?
right, yeah.
The old boy and the 2i's was really the centre of where it was all really happening.
That's right. Who else was there? Yes.
Did you get your drum and bass from?
The famous bass.
Yeah.
Well, I was working for Wee Willie Harris at the time, and the band leader was a man called Tony Crombie. I was a rocket then, a Tony Crombie rocket. I've been quite a few names. I've been a page boy, a Terry Dean Ace.
Yeah, that's right. Terry Dean and the Dean Aces, wasn't it?
A Tony Crombie rocket, a drifter, and a few other. Don Lang. I was a frantic fiver. That's it. And the famous bass. Yeah. Well, I was playing string bass then, and my band leader, he said to me, "Have you seen that new invention?" And I said, "No. What is it?" And he showed me it down Charing Cross Road in London, and there was this. I'd never seen one. A famous, semi-acoustic type thing, and it was 40 quid. Well, I managed to scrape. That was quite a lot of money to get hold of then, 40 quid. But I scraped it up. Oh, I think I sold me double bass. That's right. And I got it in Charing Cross Road. And I actually used to. It had the scratch board was brass or copper or something. And if I touched the mic and this fingerboard, this scratch board, I used to get a shock over this thing. Anyway, Tony Meehan put that to death. I'd leant it up against the dressing room door, which opened inwards, and it was there. So Tony, he must have seen it. He opened the door and let it fall inwards, and it broke the neck off. So that was the end of that. So I borrowed one then, a white one. I can't think what it was. But then, of course, I joined Cliff, and then we started getting the famous Fenders then, Don't think we paid, I think we got them for nothing, because we were advertising. But that's where the famous came from, Charing Cross Road. A shop called, tell a lie, Rupert Street.
Oh, yeah.
A musical shop called Foots.
Yeah, that's right, Foots.
It was a bass player shop
right,
there.
No, double bass player.
I bought a bass in there, double bass. It's called a Hawks Concert. And it was about 7 foot tall, wasn't it, Brian? With a great scroll on top, and it was 105 years old, and it was a pound for every year I paid for it, 105 quid. And then that's how I managed to get the money to buy this bass guitar. That's it, that's my story.
So, in actual fact, your career, Jet, and mine, although we went down the same 2i's, you went with Cliff, Hank, and Tony. Myself, Brian Bennett and myself, we went in the other direction. We played with, on the old Oh Boy show, we met Marty Wilde. So Brian Bennett, myself, and a guy called Big Jim Sullivan.
Yeah.
Big Jim Sullivan and Tony Belcher, a lovely rhythm guitar player. We became the Wildcats then.
That's right.
Do you remember? So you were forging ahead with Cliff.
No, I was down there. I was with the Vipers.
Vipers.
That's right. And Cliff poached me off of Wally Whiten. He poached me on tour. I was touring with the Most Brothers. I don't suppose any of you ever saw them, did you? That was Mickey Most, and you did. Age.
Wow.
And it was and I'd never seen anybody in a pink jacket and pink socks, and a pink tie. And Cliff came up to me and he said, "Are you Jet Harris?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Would you like to work for me? I'm going out on tour." And I said, "No, I've got a job with Mickey Most." I was getting 4.5 quid a night, that's right, with Mickey Most. And anyway, we were doing this 3-week tour, and I suddenly saw Move It creeping into the charts, And he's still offering me a job, and it went up to number sort of 19 to 10. And I thought to myself, well, you better get in here, Jet. So I said, "Yeah, I'll work for you, And of course, Well, that's why I'm sitting here. But I'd never seen this pink jacket and pink socks and this, you know. What about me hair? Do you know about this blonde hair I used to have?
Changed the back, didn't you?
Well, when I was with the Vipers, we all lived in the basement. We had 2 monkeys, and under my bed there was a skunk called Sam he'd had his smell taken out. And in the cellar we had a fox called Sandy. And one day we were bored because we weren't working. What should we do? You know, what can we do? It was pouring rain. And we decided to dye my hair blonde, you see. Well, what I didn't know, that it was bleach. I thought I could go to the bathroom after and wash this out, you know. But you couldn't, well, you know, especially the women know, you can't wash bleach out. Anyway, we had to go and do a gig. This is when I was just about to join Cliff, and girls started screaming at this blonde hair, you know, so we thought we're going to keep this. And then, of course, we went up in the charts, and that's when there wasn't a dark-haired bass player in England. Everybody was blonde. So I'd had enough of that. One day I went back to my normal colour. None of them could play anymore. So that's me, with my blonde hair. What else? Any questions? Yes?
Who took the credit for writing Nivran? Did you or Hank? Because you wrote the bass line, didn't you?
Well, no, it was a joint effort. There's 3 names on there, isn't it? Marvin Welsh and Marvin Harris and Meehan, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, but you came round with the bass line first, and then Hank jammed in with you, and that's how it came about, yeah?
Yeah, and I wrote the middle 8. I wrote that middle 8 bit. But, you know, I was always trying to get Hank to play some jazz. This is when Bruce used to go deaf. No. You know, we couldn't quite explain to Bruce how in modern jazz, on rhythm guitar, you just do a downstroke, you know, with the bass player. And he couldn't suss that. He was going junka, 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 you know. But in the end, Bruce he began to like a little bit of jazz, you know. But that was a joint effort, the actual writing. It was me and Harris and Marvin. Yeah.
Was you living in Willesden, Jet?
I was living in Willesden. No, I left home at 16, I think. And that's when I was living in a basement with the Vipers.
Because I passed you in a place called Baker's Passage, just down by Park Road. Baker's Passage, a little alley in Willesden.
Yeah.
And I was going up the road and you were coming down.
Park Royal, I wonder what I was doing there. I
don't know what you did when you were there.
I used to make milk churns in Park Royal for United Dairy Supply. Yeah, I was a welder. And, you know, I wanted to be music, and Mum was saying, no, you know, there's no future in that. And but I persisted, you know. But I was strict modern jazz. I've been known to say, you'll never catch me playing that bloody rock and roll, you know what I mean? But that's how it works. I found out there was no money in jazz, you know. As much as, well, we still like it now. Me and Laurel Jones there, we play it quite often. And you like it, don't you?
What do you think was one of the highlights of your career? Yeah.
The highlight, the biggest thing that's ever happened to me was when I walked past the King's Head without going in. No. No. The biggest, and no one can top it, is when I walked out on that stage at Wembley Stadium. The hair, what's left, went up at the back there. You know, it was an incredible feeling walking out in front of, I don't know, what was it, 90, 100,000 people. In all the time I was with Cliff, we never played an audience. I don't think Cliff's played an audience that big. But that is, everywhere I went, there was a little girl followed me with a walkie-talkie. I've got him. You know, they didn't leave me in case I ran away or something. But just before I was going on, I said, I've got to go to the toilet. So she's telling them in the control room, I've got him, but he wants the toilet. And Well, follow him, go with him. So she led me to the toilet and stood outside, obviously, because I'm quite capable, you know. And I went in there and did the business and came out. She said, I've got him again, he's done it. And I could hear them starting to announce, and then she led me up this gangplank. And Cliff was saying, there they are, I've got two shadows here you haven't seen for years. Jet Harris, Tony Meehan. And I walked out up this plank, and there it was. Can you imagine? They were on the field and all, you know. And that's the highlight of my life.
They gave you a big buzz.
Yeah, and Cliff gave me a good drink after, you know. Yes?
How did you get on the Fender 6? How did you get into that style?
Well, the Besame Mutual, the man with the golden arm, someone else told me about it, you know, but no one would touch it.
No, so low, you know.
Exactly. And I packed it in. I had 2 hits with it, but I packed it in because people were saying to me, if they were sitting in special, different parts of the audience, they couldn't hear it. But because now with the amplifiers now, I mean, we weren't mic'd up in those days. It was just your 30 watt, not 30, what they called? AC 30s. That's all we had then, you know, to pump this thing out. And I just packed it in and went on to a detuned. No, it wasn't a Jaguar. I cleared this up yesterday. Diamonds was done on a Gretsch, detuned, 1 tone. And I hope Barry is listening to this because he swears that I did it on a 6-string bass and I didn't. Anyway, over to Licorice. Let's hear something about him.
Any questions, if any?
Where does the name Licorice come from?
It's to do with, it started in 1956 in a skiffle group we had in Lincolnshire, and we was mucking about with instruments, yeah, and like one had a trumpet, you know, trombone, and I had a clarinet, and they call them licorice sticks, don't they? So I know what we'll call you Licorice. And it's stuck ever since. Okay. And on stage they used to sort of throw Bassett's licorice all sorts. You know. And I used to get packets of these, you know. And but that's how the name came about. There's nothing, you know. It just evolved that way, you know, from you know, mucking about with a toy clarinet actually. And so in those early skiffle days, you know, we was looking for nicknames for each other. That's when I had the tea-chest bass. Remember the tea-chest basses? And mine was a broom, ordinary tea-chest, post office string, and an ordinary broom, you know, upside down, and the string tied round the head. And you pull it backwards, you know, to get the notes. Great instrument, good notes. But the trouble is, your fingers were all smashed to pieces. Okay.
That's right.
But that's how I got the name Licorice, and it's stood ever since.
What about some of those blisters we used to get from the double bass?
Oh yeah.
We are talking serious blisters here,
right,
you know.
yeah,
it's the length of the finger, and you got to pop them, haven't you?
Yeah, with we sterilise a needle, you
That's
know,
right.
in a flame.
Yeah.
And then just broke the blister, and you know, and just. By the way, when you used to see us grinning, you know, we weren't grinning, we were grimacing.
Wincing.
Wincing with pain, you know, but grinning at the same time, you know, sticking it out until we, you know, the fingers came home.
When I burst my blisters, I used to sit with watching television in vinegar.
Aye.
And then I found a better one, and that's solder in flux. That gave me a bit of jip when I put my finger in there, you know, but it did the trick. It hardened all these and made them really hard. I bet we couldn't play a double bass now without...
Oh no! It's you know, I've tried it, you know.
Yeah, I tried.
Funny enough, I get the. It's not only the fingers are suspect now, but I get it's up the arm. You know, the muscles up the arm seem to seize up.
That's right. Is it you that dropped one? We've both done this. Dropped it down the stairs.
Oh yeah. Can I tell you about this? It was there was a guy, a bass player called Vince Coos. Remember him? Have you heard of him? No. Anyway, I borrowed his. I normally had an amplifier which was about 7 foot high. This thing, homemade, with Marty Wilde, right? And was going to do a recording, and it on Philips then with Martin. And so I said to Vince, "Can I borrow your amplifier?" He says, "Yeah, but the trouble is, it's in King's Cross, left luggage."
He couldn't afford to get it out.
So I had to go all because this is from King's Cross to Edgware Road, you know.
Yeah.
So I went all the way to King's Cross, and I got it out of the left luggage, and it was as heavy as lead, you know. And sort of picking it up, tiptoeing. All the way, you know, from King's Cross, how I carried it off the ground onto the tube. Anyway, I finally managed, when we got to Leicester Square, the longest escalator in the world, on the Bakerloo line, I think it is.
Right, yeah.
And so it was rush hour as well, and so I sat down, you know, on this wacky great big amplifier, and so I laid it down, you know, and sat on it, going up the escalator. Right, and we got to the top, by this time sweating, and I just got up to get it, but the heavy end was the other end, and it went all the way down the escalator with people jumping on the sides, elderly men and women. Really, you know, and they stopped the escalator and and it smashed, and there were speakers and valves and everything, and it was just a piece of hunk of firewood at the bottom, you know. So I picked it up and left it in the information desk.
Talking about amplifiers, this is famous, this amplifier, isn't it?
Yeah.
I bought one in the same shop as I got my big double basses, and they thought in those days, if you lined it with sand, this is true, it would work as a baffle board.
Right.
So I bought this thing. It was about £100. I'll never forget. But it took 3 men to carry it, you see. Anyway, it's on that first LP with Cliff, the live one he did in Abbey Road. Well, there's a picture on the back. You can see this big thing. It was maroon, nice, which you never forget. Anyway, I sold it to the Hunters. Dave Sampson and the Hunters.
I remember them, yeah.
Now, this is 1959. In turn, the bass players sold it to Chaz and Dave, who've hung on to it for, it must have been 30 years still. But then it exploded. I don't know how they exploded, but it is now a rabbit hutch in Chaz and Dave, or one of their gardens. It's a rabbit hutch now. The famous amp is gone, it's bitten the dust, but it did its work, you know. Any more questions there?
Jill, we've heard how Licorice got his name. Is that right, you got your name because you was a fast runner? I read
That's right.
in the book.
It's not long after the jet was invented, actually, to be quite honest. What was that, 53, wasn't it, or something?
Something like that.
No, I was at this college. I went to a building, an architecture and art college, and they were very big on sports there, you know. And I used to go. I was a very, very